The original Black Widow piece I did, it was really one of my first YouTube videos that I put a lot of time into editing and building really good how-to, and that was kind of my vision for this channel, building it out to really high-quality how-to videos. And the Black Widow was really one of the first ones I pulled that trigger on and really went through it. And for those of you who did it or who've seen it or watched it or actually done the project, that was a two-part. Part one was pretty much background prep, base coat, how to do the web, how to do all that work and layering that section. That was the first part of the video. And then part two was the actual Black Widow itself. And that was kind of a Black Widow hanging down in front. And that one was great. A ton of you guys downloaded it. Everyone supported it, and they've been using it and doing their version on it. It's been awesome to see how many people have used it over the past almost 4 years. I think it was 4 years ago I did that one, 3.5, 4 years ago. We've done a lot of videos since then. But in the interim, I've done more Black Widow pieces. Just it was done on various motorcycles, other projects, and then at the Airbrush Rendezvous and at the Airbrush Art Circus, I did these two variants. And we've taught those a few times in other ways, so I figured it was about time to kind of refresh that. And this is about the 4-year anniversary of the original video, so figured why not bring these other Black Widows to the surface and make them available to you guys. So for those of you who downloaded the first set, now there's an additional set, which is these two Widows with the same web as the first one. It was a little bit thicker. I thickened it up to make it a little bit easier to work with. The original one was really thin, so this is the same web as the main web, but just done a little bit thicker. And then, so I put up another product, which is basically the Mega Collection. So if you go on to McKayFineArt.com, you can get, either set 1 or set 2 independently, or you can get them all together in one large set and do them all. So let me show you the two different ones that are available. And these are actually some of the ones we've done in past workshops. This was the forward-facing one. Love the way this one looks. It really has a nice dimensional look to it. And just the way he's kind of coming out at you, she's coming out at you, which is really cool. And then this one here, which is, this was the second one I did, then the other one was the third one. This is, kind of a top-down view, top-down 3/4. And this one's really gnarly looking. So I've done these two, and we have these here for reference. So if you go to the download, these are both available on there. And then we took a vote today, a poll, to see which one we wanted to do. And this one won. So it was pretty close. It was, I think, 55 to 45 or something like that was the percentage. And we're going to do the forward-facing one. But we're going to do it on this, which I only have done this one at a time, and that was done in class. It was done in class, and it was on this ground metal TNT panel. And these are done, and you can buy them, obviously without the web. It's just ground metal, and it's candy, whatever color. TNT Panels is the one that makes them. And this is another one we did on the same panel, just so you can see that this has got a semi-matte clear on it, and I haven't done a final. I did this a while ago, but I'll kind of shine this up with a little, something that's a little bit more light clear, and you can see just how much that pops and how cool that is. Let me switch to the other camera here. You can just see how awesome and dimensional that looks. So when you do the Black Widow over it, it just looks really, really, really killer. Which is what we're going to do tonight. So this is what we're going to do. So this has already been done. And then I actually already cleared... Did I clear over this? No, I didn't clear over it. But so all I did with this one is this is a black web, because it's on the red. And then it gets a little bit more like metallic-y and a little bit red towards the side. So it's really subtle. So it'll be a really cool piece. Let me switch back up here. So like I said, this panel, when you get these panels, you can get them already in whatever color you want, or candy red, candy multi-tone, different grind patterns. He's got a bunch of different shapes. And then so all I did was I sanded it down with 600. cleaned it all up, and then we did the web on top of it. And then, so what you could do to be safe, if you don't want to feel the edge, you could clear over it and sand it again. I didn't bother doing that. I'm going to put the mask down on it, and I'll scuff around inside it. And that way you don't see the actual, any indentations from the spider itself. Give me 2 seconds. Got to get a little scuffy pad there. So what I'm going to do is after I put the mask on, we're going to scuff this out to make sure, you know, you don't get any of these bumps that kind of show through. But before I do that, let's see what we got here for people. So I've been talking through all that. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, we got Honey. How you doing? We got Carl. Jump back and forth between feeds. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Hi, Carl, Paul. Honey, let's see. Nameless subscriber, Mike. No sound. Yeah, I got everyone now. Thanks. I should have been looking at it earlier. It would have been good. But now I got sound and recording, so we'll do that post edit. And we got London. Hey, Demetrius, Mike, Gillette. Looks like a servant tray. Yeah, kind of. Just much cooler. And these are heavy steel. These aren't aluminum. These are a steel panel. These, I've had this one for a while. It's got a little surface rust on the backside. But these are super heavy. They're definitely not a lightweight piece. It will be more expensive if it was Tiffany. Don't forget that like button. Thank you, Honey, for that. Cool. Let's see what we got on Facebook. I saw my mom on there. Sorry, I was in the middle of a bunch of stuff. Couldn't shout out to you. Jeff Cronin in the house. We got Tony from Canada. Joshua. Thank you all for popping out. And let's see here. Like always, for some reason the Facebook feed sometimes gets glitchy, and if it does, click over to YouTube, Airbrush Down Dirty Tricks. You get a much better feed, much better experience. So definitely click over and do that. So this is what we're doing. This is the project. So the nice thing is you have this nice reference here. I'll show you guys this kind of the map, what we're doing. And so if you're going to be doing this on your own, Scott, is the skull and roses for sale? Well, you could not independently, but that rose file is for sale. And then that's just a skull that I did a paper cut file. So that I used, actually that's the same skull from the biomechanical project. So both projects are up there. You'd have to put it together, but I haven't put it together as one. Maybe it's something I will do in the future. That's definitely something to consider. So, what I've done here is I've done 2 plot files. Okay? I have the positive, the negative cutout of the silhouette of the widow. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint that first, and then when that dries, then we'll put another mask on top of it and for all the details. So it's a 2-part mask, okay? And so what I did is, this first one has standard transfer tape on it. And then the overlay has a clear transfer tape on it, makes it easier to line up. So I'll show you a couple tricks for that. And this was cut out of the blue mask, the FBS blue mask. And what's great about this is, obviously it's super thin, curves really well. So if you're on a curved surface, it works out really well. So let's get this one mounted up and masked onto the board. So we're just going to find it kind of, I'm going to try to place it so, a couple of the points of the, legs are actually on a web. You can kind of see that, where it is there. I think that'll be a cool placement right there. It's also a little bit centered in camera, so that's good. And we'll stick that on. I'm going to do the old hinge technique. This is how, I think she wants to buy the piece. Oh, is that piece itself for sale? Everything's for sale, honey. This one needs to be cleared one more time, just because it got a little damage up here. But yeah, I mean, possible. These panels are definitely not, cheap $5, $8 panels that I normally use. These are, I don't know how much these panels cost from TNT Panels, but they're not super cheap. They're at least $150, I think, for this panel itself. I'd have to look it up. So, needless to say, this will not be going for, like a $200 bid, because it's going to have to start at least at $250 before I'd even consider it, because these panels are very pricey, and this is a lot of work for this project. So, standard application. I've done it in a bunch of videos. I don't need to spend too much time on it. Standard hinge technique is the way I like to do it. Get it into position, put a piece of tape down the center. Scroll, pull it back, and I just tear it a little bit there and give it a snap. Snaps right off. Squeegee it on down there. Pull the other side. Again, Facebook chat stinks. Maybe I just need to get another iPad. I need like 2 more iPads because I need more screens in front of me. Because you see in the setup, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 screens in front of me right now. Let's add 1 more. So, first thing you want to do, you get this laid on nice and smooth. And then we can pull the transfer tape off. As far as cutting and weeding, I've done a whole bunch of videos. Please go to some of the past videos. You can go and check them out. Those are pretty much Vinyl 101 basics. And for those of you who download this file, this is how it comes. It actually comes with the files already separated out. So you have a positive and a negative preset. You don't have to manually configure them yourself. They're sized accordingly to each other, so they match up. So as long as you keep everything sized, then everything will line up perfectly on the file. It's an expensive pizza pan. I'm going to use my backmasker here. These are the best little quick inventions. I mean, I could have used a cheap piece of metal instead of a nice big candied piece of ground metal steel. I mean, that would have been an option. But I figured this would be much cooler. Because how often do you get to see live feeds over candied ground metal? So obviously we're backmasking to protect the rest of the panel. We don't want paint on, because as we know, if you leave it exposed, no matter how gently you spray or paint something, the paint's going to find a way to get there. The overspray will always sneak through and make it happen. Cool. All right. So, now normally you could just go through and blast here, but you have this web. And even if you put you could put enough base coat here where you wouldn't see the bump, but it'd still be there. It might shrink back over the years. You may see it a little bit. So what I like to do, just to be safe, is I'm not trying to get rid of it. I'm just going to go through and hit the major areas with a Scotch-Brite, or you could use a piece of 6 or 800. But the great thing about this is you're just guaranteeing better adhesion because you're going to scuff everything again. And it'll just help alleviate some of them lines. Just be careful on all your little sharp points and things like this, because you can start pulling up the mask. And it's really, I mean, I'm more concerned with the details in here. I don't want to have a bunch of web showing through the black, because it's one of those things. As you're painting it, you might not see it, and then you get all the way through and you still don't see it, and then you clear it and then you see it, because the clear makes everything kind of come to light, good and the bad. So I'd rather not risk finding out then. That's it. Just give it a little scuff. I've got 41 people in here. Thank you all for popping in on a Friday night. My wife mentioned it before. She's like, sometimes I get better feeds on Friday nights, and I've almost considered moving it to Friday versus Thursday. But Thursday kind of holds a special place in the live feed community, so I think we'll keep it where it's at. What do you wipe it down after scuffing? Honestly, just a little wax and grease remover is all you need. Depending what paint you're using. Like this is just regular wax and grease remover. This is House Colors KC 10. Because if this is all water-based, and this was I forget what I used here. The sealer, or it was really, really aggressive, so it wasn't coming off even with like a water-based cleaner. But you got to be careful with water-based cleaners with water-based paints; it'll rip them off. Okay, so let's talk about colors here and what I've done. Now, everyone's first instinct here is to it's a Black Widow, so everyone's going to spray black. Okay? And it's really not what you want to do. So if you look, let me go switch cameras here. So you see this, I got quite a bit of color in here. And what I really started with was like a purplish gray color, pretty dark. I'll show you that. That way I have something to put white and black on to get all your shadows and highlights. And then this kind of blue and red tone you see is done after the fact, like overlay. But if you start with black and then you go white, black, white, you don't get the full depth. So you want to start with like a gray color. So what I did is I mixed up this kind of like a purplish dark gray. And what I did is I used Illustration Opaque White. I used Illustration Black and a little Illustration Violet, and kind of created this really dark purplish gray color. And this is going to be my ground coverage, my coverage for this. And for that, we're just going to break out, we'll break out one of the eclipses. And like I always do, I always strain before I go in. So I got my little strainer here, which is just like I've done a bunch of times, it's just a fitting. And some filter screens. These are tobacco filter screens. You can get at a tobacco store. And we're just gonna Is there any debris in there? No. Could there be? If it's an older paint, these are brand new bottles, so they're fine. But you got paint sitting around for a long time, it's always good to strain them. Okay, so right now we're just base covering at this point. Could you use like a burnt sienna, then go over black or white? Yeah, you can use a burnt sienna or a brown tone. You can do all sorts of tones to it, like depending what you want the spider's kind of undertone to be. So yeah, like a burnt sienna color would be great. You can do all sorts of stuff. Okay, so the key you want to do here is I want to get good coverage but I'm not trying to flood it, but I don't want to put it on too dry. A lot of people's mistakes, especially in water, is where they make the mistake is this first pass. They either go too wet and then coat it too soon, and you end up trapping wet layer under layer, or you put the first coat too dry. You want a nice medium wet, and then you want to watch it flash off. Like if you just notice here, it flashed off pretty quick. That's already dry. So everyone's saying water base takes too long. That's already dry. Okay? It flashed off. Now if you put it on too wet, it's going to take a long time to dry. I'm just trying to get a nice even coverage. Something that the next mask can go on. I'm going to show you a trick because it does get a little tricky to line up the next layer. It'll be a little hard to see, but I'll show you a couple tricks to that. You can see that flash. I'm not sure if you can see it on camera, but how it flashed off like that. And it's really enough. And the cool thing, what I'm going to do now, before I get too deep, is I'm actually going to take some black. I'm going to darken this up another touch. Yeah, $250 would be a minimum start, just because the price of the panel alone. And what this is going to be when it's done. And it's going to be such a cool piece that I'll like it sitting on my wall. I'll enjoy looking at it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to darken this up a little bit. I'm going to put some texture in that base now. Just so it's already there. Kind of build it in before I start putting the mask on it. But I'm not trying to go too much. It's just there. Doesn't really need to be in the legs much. It can just be kind of in the body. But it's very minor. It doesn't have a lot. Doesn't need a lot. Just enough to give it a little something something. I've been good, man. How about yourself? Yes, I did. Thank you. Now I'm going to actually go back to that first color. And we'll give it a little bit more texture. We can give it... It's going to have texture towards the end. But if you can put some in the beginning, it just acts as a little underpainting texture. Which is kind of a really cool way to do it. Let that flash off. Yes, after I realized I had it muted. So this is probably good. I can go right to masking on it. I'm going to give it another minute or two. And while we're doing that, we'll talk about a few things I've done. This is a great example of sequential masking. Okay, so we've talked about sequential masking in the past quite a bit. It's how I like to work my way out of something or into something, depending on if I'm on a light color. I'm on a light background using lighter color airbrush work, or if I'm on a dark background using brighter colors. It's going to depend which way I pull my mask and layer from, and I try to work as sequentially as possible, so I'm working my way out of a painting or into a painting, depending on the layering. So it's always good to have a little reference piece, and you can kind of figure out which is over which and things like that. So, you know, when I'm looking at this, here, and I'm comparing it to the original here, it's nice with this because you can actually look what's furthest in the background and what's in the foreground. And the great thing about the Widow project is it's really about background to foreground. So if you work in the right order, it's a very easy piece to manage. And And you can manage it two ways because I have this mid-tone. You can decide if you want to work highlights first, then shadows. Or if you want to work all your shadows against the mask and go from there. So I save a lot of piece on this one, so we'll do a lot of back and forth, which would be a really cool example. And if you're doing this one, it's the same process. You're just eyeballing which is under which is why even if you go back and watch the first one to this one, it's pretty much the same lesson. It's just different positions. Okay, so by doing this, it's not just one way to do it. And you can only do that technique with this image. It's a technique to learn for multiple variants. So you can do a lot with it. All right. Let's bring our reference back up here. So this can be the issue a lot of times. Everyone has trouble with this, and I've had trouble with it in the past as well. Let's see what I'm missing here. This was my first project with Scott. Oh, yeah. The Cameo is a nice little machine. It does a good job. I have one. I like it. If you want to go a couple $100 more, you can go to US Cutters. They have some other plotters you can do that are a little bit better as far as vinyl cutters, but they won't cut hard materials. Where the Cameo does a little bit of both, so it's really nice. And I like the Cameo much better than the Cricut. The Cricut, I hate this software. Hate their interface and the way it's so locked down, so I don't recommend it for that reason. The machine's good, I just don't recommend it because of the way their interface works. So what we have here is, this is the positive, but it's hard to line up, right? So what I'm going to do is, we're going to do a lot of this by pulling the mask and lining it up, but it's, even with the clear transfer tape, sometimes it's hard to see, okay? It's really hard to see the edge. So what you can do, as long as you didn't... I can't find my scuff pad. Where'd my scuff pad go?
I don't know.
I had my scuff pad. I got it. You take a scuff pad or a piece of like 800 or 1000, and if you go to the edge, you can kind of scuff back. If you look, let me switch cameras here. Let me see if we can zoom in a little bit and you can see what I'm doing. Because I'm not worried about scuffing any of that texture away, but I want to like expose the edge. So look, if I just kind of ride the edge, I can expose that edge to show up, and then it's going to be easier for me to see because it comes off the mask much faster than the paint, in the painted area. So I can just go through, and really I'm just lightly skimming across the top. Okay, I'm not even really hitting much inside the painted area because the mask is higher. It's just exposing the edges, and that's giving me an easier registration. You could make registration marks to line up exactly, but here's the honest truth about all plotters. I don't care how good your plotter is, unless it's an older plotter that was a tractor-fed plotter. You know, track-fed means it had like the cog gears, and the vinyl couldn't shift and move. Whenever you cut two independent images, even from the same file, they're in different positions on the roll. They can be off by like a couple hundredths of an inch here and there. So I don't heavily rely on registration to make it perfect. So sometimes you got to bend and move it a little bit. So this is a nice way of doing it. And again, a little bit of extra scuff in here, it's just going to mean you get better adhesion. So yeah, so Warlock's right. The problem with Cameo is, the problem not with Cameo, the problem with Cricut is their software is so locked down. If you design something in their software, you can't even save it out to a different file type to use on a different program or machine. Whereas I created an Adobe Illustrator and I can give you files for everything. For every type of program you can cut it on. If you design on a Cricut, it's locked into the Cricut. It's really it's just the way it is. So I recommend as far as the craft cutter goes, I would definitely go with a Cameo over the Cricut. All right, so there's a couple ways you could do this. You could do this. And what you can do is you can take this take this plot and just cut out really tight next to some of the areas. And I've done this a lot in class. So you can basically line up those areas pretty easy as registration without having like extra registration marks. Which is probably the easiest way to do it, especially if you're not that proficient at handling vinyl yet, and you don't want to just like basically freehand it. Like what I was about to do is just basically pull the vinyl, backing off, and just freehand lay it in. But for those not that handy with this stuff yet, just because you're kind of new to it, this is probably the best way to do it. You don't have to cut close to the whole thing. You really only need like 3 spots, 2 to 3 spots that connect. I give myself a few more. So look, I'll cut right into this area here, this point. And I'll come right across the back side. And I'll cut all this out. And then I can go back to the hinge technique. Because now I can see I can line this up to here, this to here, and make sure everything fits into its position. And if it doesn't line up 100%, which this one, when you cut in one, it usually is pretty good. So the hinge works really well. If you're cutting a lot, like when I do a class, a lot of times it's really easy. Yeah, there's some great tutorials to follow for that. Yeah, it's a nice thing to use. What's also nice about having a craft cutter is you can cut hard stencils out of it. You can't do that on a normal plotter very easily because plotter film is vinyl sticker, it's not back. But with a Cameo or a craft cutter, you can load in cardstock, you can load in Mylar, you can load in like cardboards and other materials. Some of the craft cutters will even do like thin balsa wood. There's a lot of cool things you can make with it. So standard hinge technique. I'm going to pull this off just like before. And then I'm going to line this right up. Line this right up. And now what I'm going to do is if I start seeing these legs go off, it's easy enough where I can kind of pull these position and get them to lay in. And they don't need to be like dead nuts because the way this file is and we're so constrained, it just has to be in the ballpark, really. So this vinyl I'm using is the FBS Blue Mask. I got my little logos up there, make it easy for you guys. This is my preferred mask overall, just because it cuts like butter. It conforms across curved surfaces like no other product on the market. It's just really nice stuff. So right here, I'm a little off track. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that back up. And I'm going to kind of tear it. You can cut it. And now I can kind of position that and stretch it and get it to lock right in. And if it doesn't quite, I can maneuver pieces around. My other option, but I ran out, I don't have any, is a lot of times what I do is I'll cut the silhouette out of blue. And then they have the green clear mask, which the green mask has... is fully transparent, so it's a green translucent, so it's really easy to line it up because you can see through it. So if using clear transfer tape and the clear mask, it lines up really, really, really easy. and that's just the green version of this. So now that's on here. I'm going to pull this off. Now this one, if you couldn't tell already, this already has all the cuts in it. So all these lines, all these parts are already cut out of this material. You really can't see it on camera too well, but it's already pre-cut. It's not just an open silhouette. Now I can pull this off. So now you gotta see what happened is I went off a little track here, but it's not that big of a deal just because the way this is. So I'm gonna pull this off, and all I have to do with some of these, like this one's a little off track, so I can just pull that off. And realistically, I'm painting underneath it, so this one doesn't even matter, but I'll just show you how repositionable this stuff is. I can just put it right back into position where it needs to go, and things like that. So it makes it really simple, but because I'm not that reliant on it being that exact, I'm not going to worry too much about it. Okay, so we got that there. I'm going to see if I can zoom out a little bit on this shot. It's a little bit easier to see everything going on here. All right. So now you look at this piece. You have to, the nice thing about working from one that's already painted is you can see what's foreground, what's background. You can see the butt, the backside, that's kind of the most furthest back. Okay, so it's the most furthest back. That's going to have the most shadow on it. So we're going to go back and forth with black and white. This is where having two airbrushes is really helpful and really crucial. Whereas if you have one airbrush, you got to do a lot of clean out back and forth. You have two, it's going to make this job go super, super fast and easy. All right. First thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to kind of save the pieces, is I'm going to get the red in here for the hourglass, and I'm just going to save that here. I'm also going to do the red eyes. And then I'm going to put them back. So look, I'm just going to pull each one out. I'm going to use my pick tool here, or you can use plastic razor blades. And I'm just going to gently pick them out, and I'm saving them because I'm going to put them back. And what I'm going to do first is, I can use a heavy opaque red, but I want to keep it thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go white first. This is... I'm going to go white first, and I'm going to add texture into this as I'm doing it. Because the red is a little semi-transparent, that's why I'm putting white down first. Because it's not really a high coverage paint. And I do that for a reason, so I can do this. Okay. So I'm just putting that in there. And this is going to be my opaque white. And this is actually, it's illustration white. What I did, I put about 10% opaque illustration white to this, so it's kind of in between. Black Cat Airbrush, how's it going? Welcome to the party. When using two airbrushes on a piece, you generally like to use the same? Nah, it doesn't matter. You know, sometimes I'm using one that's more for detail, one that's more for broad. They don't have to be the same. So now I'm going to do this red. And you probably can't see it on camera, but you'll see it here more. You can still see that because it's semi-transparent red, you're still going to see that texture through it, which is why I put that texture with white. Now, if I use an opaque red, even if I'm doing this in solvent, it takes a lot more coverage, so I'd have a very high buildup on that edge, and I don't want that high buildup on that edge. Cool. So now those are there. All right. So now I got to consider which way I want to go here. I am going to go with my illustration black. So I'm going to put my illustration black in one brush. And I like illustration black because, again, it's semi-transparent. I don't want to use the opaque. I don't want it to go too opaque too fast. That's kind of what I do with the white as well. This project, you could totally do it all with the Eclipse, no problem, or anything like that. I just over-reduce my paint when I use my microns just because they're here. Total easy project to do with the Eclipse because it relies so much on masking. The first one I'm going to do... What's on tap? Black Widow painting. That's what's on tap. That's what we're doing. We're painting this guy. So what I'm going to do is I want to get the body done here. So I'm going to pull this masking and work that. No, you know what? Yeah. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to work some of the legs. And I'll show you where I'm going to highlight and how I'm going to do that. But I think we got enough contrast where the black should be enough. So let's see what happens here. I'm going to pick this 1 foot or leg and just see just going to see which looks better. Because I can go in and just hit this dark shading, which I think I might actually go white first. Yeah. So, this is the way I'm going to go on the legs. But we're going to do the body first. And I'll go here, here, here. We may have to put some pieces back. I'm going to go like this.
Oh, I don't think that's what he meant by tap.
I don't know.
They're asking about...
Oh, tonight's just little makers. Nope. So we're going to go, because this is pretty much on the darker side, so we're going to go highlight first, then shade. So I'm going to go foreground pieces to background. That's the way this one is going to work out better, because this is on top, and I'm just going to have to save some pieces. So, let's do the foreground leg. You can kind of see, especially where it overlaps the body, because it's easier to come here and just do a little shading. So see what I did here? This is basic cylindrical highlighting. Airbrush 101, guys. You know, we've talked about cylindrical shading before. Look at your airbrush. You can see the bright highlight down the center, and then it gets darker towards the edges that are further behind. That's all these spider legs really are. And I can hit that. And I'm starting with the middle joints because they're kind of more visible. And I'm just hitting the highlights and just running right down the edge. I'm going to zoom out so you can see that a little bit more. If you're not comfortable freehand, you can use a template like this and just, you can put an edge, and it actually looks really cool to have kind of a sharp edge right on it. See that? And then we can go to the next one. You can see you get that nice joint here. You get that nice joint here. And now if you're uncomfortable, you can just put this mask right back on like this if you want as you go, and just put it right back in position. It doesn't have to be perfect. And just work your way around. I usually, on these, what I've been doing past couple times I've done it, I've put these pretty bright white and I've put red on those tips. And just use a stencil just to get it edged out really nice. I'm going to go here. So you just got to see what's in the foreground because I'm working light. So really, you can do a few at the same time. If you wanted to, you can go in and just grab a few. Just don't do too many. You might get lost. Do a couple at a time. This is one of those projects, as you're going through it, you're like, oh, you can't see what's happening. But as you start getting close to the end, you start unmasking, everything just really comes together and looks really, really cool. Keep an eye where your light source is coming from and how things are kind of gleaming off each other. But this is such a forgiving project, like the original Black Widow, because it's all masked. So you have very little freehand to worry about. And because it's a Black Widow, you can just really gnarl it up and have some fun with it. What was the name of the guy who does these panels for you? So it's TNT Panels, and that was Trent or Troy. I forget his name off the top of my head. I can look it up. Someone else can maybe bring that up. It's TNT Panels. We've used these in the Airbrush art circuits quite a bit. So once I've kind of got these done, so I don't get, like I said, I don't get too lost, I'm going to put some of these back. Whoops. If I don't tear them up. There we go. Like I said, these are pretty forgiving. This is a pretty forgiving material. Here's the thing about having a plotter. You can always use a plotter because it's going to help you with certain freehand techniques, and it opens you up to do other things. If you're going to get into custom painting, chances are you're going to be doing lettering, you're going to be doing logos, you're going to be doing things like that. So you need to have a way to cut that stuff and make that more efficient for you. And then you can work freehand within those things. So I'm going to do a lot of freehand work inside here, but it's going to be masked with the plotter, so it all stays controlled. So it actually aids you more than it hurts you by having a plotter, because you can start to rely, you can use it to keep things tight, and then you can loosen up as you go, and as your freehand ability gets better, you can do more freehand with it. So that's just my take on like getting one now versus later. I tell people, probably if you're gonna be doing, depends what you're doing. If you're going for a fine art, portrait work, things like that, now you don't need one. If you're going in because you want to custom paint motorcycles or do work on like wall murals and things like that, and vehicles, you need one before you don't need one. So, and look, I don't get paid to hawk plotters by anyone. Just my experience is, by the time I got mine, I knew I should have bought one a lot sooner. And I started as a freehand t-shirt artist. And there were even times I could have used it for that back in the day. So, that's just my 2 cents. Okay, so I masked that stuff off. But let me get these guys here. That's this leg. Well, here's the thing. Majority of the work you do, so on let's say motorcycle, majority of the work is patterns, smooth graphics, tight lines, which you're going to do with tape. Like if you want to do any hexagon work, I think that plotters are invaluable because everyone wants that stuff. Like the orange one I did a couple weeks ago, week before last. It just makes that stuff so much easier. So, I got my foreground ones in, now I'm doing the background ones, and these are kind of going to be done twofold. This is where the 2 airbrushes comes in, because look, I'm gonna run the highlight across it, because of where it is. But before I put the masking back on, I'm going to switch back and forth. And now I'm going to shadow where that is. I'm going to run a shadow across the bottom. And that joint. Okay, it's gonna make it a lot easier to do that now, because I can get that kind of push-pull of where I want the highlights and things like that. Because when I come into here now, I'm gonna lay this back on. You can tell, painting it this way, and these are very technical. The Black Widows has to be really tight, and it's a lot of technical painting. So it just really is that way. There's really no way around it. Whether you're cutting it by hand or applying it, there's just a lot of push and pull. I said I would try to work, as much of the highlights as possible. Because a lot of the shadowing, I'm going to do freehand shadowing and things like that as I go. But so if I pull this off here, you got delineation. But now I can get that black in here. And I can kind of preset that up. So when I pull this back, I already got that separation there. Alright, looks good. And I'm going to freehand here and do some more highlighting. I'm going a little too fast. I'm not bad because it's pretty humid up here tonight, and we're in that New England fall time where it's humid and cold and cool and hot depending on the hour of the day.
It's so bad.
It's such a pain. Like, I want to turn the AC on right now, but I don't need to, but it would help dry things out.
Yet I'm freezing.
Yeah. But now all these legs are all set. They're all registered in. And now I can go in and I can do more. But I'm going to go get these guys done. So, these are the most prominent ones. I usually start with these. I get these out first. Time is money. That is for sure. Core highlight. Just a little bit. Come right against the mask. Right down there. If you don't have freehand control, little stencil like that, little edge. Bring that right out. Just make that crisp. And then we'll go to this guy. This middle. And then I'm going to make sure I shadow down here against the head. Oh yeah, that's a huge part of it. Plotting is just another aspect of it. It just depends on what your discipline is going to be and what you're going for. You know, if you're not doing it to do like motorcycles and cars soon, you don't need one right away. For the art of it, you don't. You can do everything by hand cut and things like that because you should learn hand cutting and masking along with it. Plotting just makes certain things more efficient. Like this project, you could totally do and just print it and just hand cut it and follow along that way as well. Yeah, fundamentals are crucial. Like when I was a t-shirt artist, mainly when I first started, there was no reason I didn't need a plotter. There were things I could have utilized it for, but I didn't need it. Put these guys back. Like if you're going into it for a business, the nice thing about having a plotter is it adds a secondary business to your custom paint business because you can do vehicle lettering, window signage. You can, if you're going to be like doing pinstripe work, you can actually cut patterns and make patterns for yourself. So there's benefits there as well. So there we go. Good. Don't need you. I'm going to put you back here. You know, a lot of these guys, I'm just going to freehand. And a lot of it will go back in with pocket graphics and just get some edges done and things like that. You know, a lot of this is just as easy to do like that. Like the main one like this is good because this leg is over these two legs. So I really want to get him dialed in here. And if you've watched my chain how-to, like the chain video, most of the lessons in the chain video also correlate to this one as well. Because you can see that one's in front of this one. And you could put this back and use it to shadow, or you can just freehand it and we can tighten up some masking. It's really just that push-pull to get the most registration as possible in. And this project kind of looks like a mess until you get to the end. Yeah, but think you could get some really cool texture cuts, man. You get that shake and utilize it. Okay, so we got you. Just going through and getting all my pieces. And just saving them. That said, you could go back and forth with black and But I'm already see that separation there? I'd rather just freehand that separation than have a hard edge. There's a couple areas here where it's important, but out here, freehand is fine. You'll see as I unmask, these legs are so far in the background, they're going to be almost blacked out anyway. The key thing is I want to get them all done before I pull this one and this one, because they're kind of tucked behind. So this way what I can do is I can have that done. Hey Gary! And now I can go in here and I can kind of shadow off that. I can shadow these right to the background now. Because out here, see this little joint here? Let me see if we can zoom in here. I actually kind of want this paint to be a little more transparent, so I might thin it some more. But see, I can just go here and I can hit that line in shadow and it's going to be fine. We can kiss over it. I want to thin this down some more because this black is, even the illustration black, and I put a little bit of opaque in there and I didn't need it. So we're just going to use illustration black by itself. Yeah, so now I can go in here. Still a little strong. Now, here's a trick. I've talked about it before. If you want it weaker, but you don't want to over-reduce it, 4004 transparent base is the key to keeping the body of the paint correct, but making it thinner. You can use a little 4050 or 4030, but that does change the chemical makeup of the paint. When you use the transparent base, it doesn't. Just trying to get that nice silky transparency. There we go. Candy black would be good here too. I almost mixed that up because it's a little bit more softer. But we'll be good. Okay, so now I got this all shadowed out. Now I'm going to pull the rear section. This is where a lot of the work of it really happens, because this is where you need it to be really good. So I'm going to do the black first once. I'm going to shadow where that body would be, where that leg would be, and the body actually comes underneath as well. So let me zoom back out. And you got to pull this off as well. And it's pretty much black under here. And the way the rear section is, I did mostly texture in here, and then I kind of just came up and just did a little bit of kind of grit work in here, just made it look really cool. I need a new chair. This chair keeps falling. And then you could take this here, you could add a little extra texture and grit to it, and then you can freehand some in, but just enough. I'm kind of going with the body a little bit, I'm going to go along the edge. I'm going to freehand along the edge a little bit so it almost has that nice indentation feel. I know Black Widow's, it's on the bottom, but for illustration purposes, I put it on the back side top. And it's my painting. I can do what I want. It is not anatomically correct. So I can go black there. And I can put a little white texture and highlight. But I'm not going to go full because I want to do it once I unmask it. And now I'm going to go with the head here. Instead, I put the eyes back in a little while ago. I'm just going to tear that out. But see how you can see enough delineation there? And if it's something I need to go back in on with the white, look, I can find a curve. I can bring that back out with a curve just as easy. I can put a little texture in here. And we can go around the eyes and just give a little bit of like bumping. Kind of like little eye sockets here. These kind of fang things are. I'm going to highlight across the head. And just work it out. Just bring it up and then push it back. So now I can go, just like doing rivets, which we've done videos on. Just make them like little sockets here. And then come around here and drop shadow everything. Again, just give it a little texture. Okay, so we're going to tone over this with some of that color later, and that's where this whole thing kind of comes together. Alright, so that's looking pretty cool. I have enough kind of going on, enough separation where I think I can pull all these pieces out. And probably freehand the rest. So let's see. Did I do this one? Yep. So see when I pull this, I have that separation. I have enough separation here. This should all have enough separation on these legs. Like I said, this is just kind of the mid painting. I'm going to pull all this stuff off. See how you can see all the kind of separations? It's kind of bold. It's kind of blocky right now, and that's fine. I don't want it to be basically all done. I want it to be kind of that mid-tone. So that way, now that it's unmasked, I can really start playing with the highlighting and shadowing and the coloring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to embolden some of these. I want to put a little texture back over that red, and I want to give a little bit of a sharp highlight gleam right across the back. So I'm just going to kind of give it like this. I'm going to go off the edge a little bit and just kiss it a little bit. Just kiss it a little bit here, a little bit there. Again, this isn't final. This is just playing around with some texture. Because watch, this is where I'm going to start adding some of those colors into it. So I'm trying to keep everything bold right now so the colors have something to stand off on. And when I unmask this, it's just going to all pop. This is where I kind of channel my inner LaValle, because he was fearless when it came to color. Absolutely fearless. So, which brush had the red? So now the red, I'm going to red tip all these, all the ends of the legs. We're going to get really bright red. So they're just going to have a super pop. And then if you look at this one, I also have some red up on the legs. Just little bits. And I'm going to put a lot of that in now. Like I'm just going to tone a couple areas of red so that white's there. I'm going to tone a little bit here. A little bit on the edge of the teeth, or the fangs, whatever they are. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of purple as well. I'm just going to mist a little bit of purple on those legs as well, just so it's not pure black and white. And what this is going to do, it's going to give my white another layer to pop off of. See how that's starting to get a cool tone? Oh yeah, man, that Jeep came out great, Michelle. Looks killer. Cool job. And then, I always like the cerulean blue. So I do a little bit of cast of that blue over some spots. You get a little bit of that color in here. And that just gives everything something to work off of. Because now watch, when I go in with this black, and this black, I'm going to add probably a little bit more reducer, make it pretty thin, and a little bit of the purple. Get a little cocktail going here. Let's go back to some multi-camera angle, because you can see the reference image and see how it's kind of shaping up. And a lot of it goes in at the very end, once I unmask. So this is where I like going in with this thin black. And now I can get these joints and the core shadows put in and really get all the overlays done. So like, instead of putting the mask back on, it's easy enough. I can take my Pocket Graphics here, the little Pyro one, and I can just hit that leg right here. I can find an edge that works. And if it doesn't, I can use a bigger stencil. And I can just kind of cut this right off here. And just hit all that shading. Get all these joints in here. All that separation super quick with just a template like that or the Pocket Graphics. Just come in here, get all your shadows done. Like, we've done this in class before, and everyone at this point is like looking at a big mess of all this color and masking, and you just look at this big kind of shit show going on here. Pardon my French, but yeah. But when you unmask it, that's where all the magic comes together. So I do a lot of freehand separation here. By the end of this, you get really good at cylindrical shading because there's so much of it. Like, really get the big visible knuckles. These are the main ones. And remember, the shading doesn't go all the way to the edge. Okay? You want the shading, you still want to have a lighter color at the very edge here. And you'll see what I mean as I go through and unmask it and do the final highlighting. Because the more little variations you get, the better everything looks. I definitely go in here and start putting a lot of little, just little squiggles, really. Just, you know, makes it look like the little hairs on the spider, or just little things going on in the texture of it. If you look at like insect books, and their skin is not all smooth, it's got a lot of little pits and cuts and lines, and study some of that stuff and you'll see that. Let's see here. Oh, I forgot this one. Thank you, Gary. This one cleared. It's absolutely insane because of the background. Who the hell has insect books? I have insect books.
Pretty sure I had them when I was a kid.
And just look online at insect pictures. Actually, I forget where the book is. That one book LaValle had, I have somewhere with all the different insects. It might be, open that one up. Open those up and see. There might be one that's like, just got a bunch of insects on the cover.
Yeah.
Look at the other one.
I remember what it looks like.
Yeah, I don't know which cabinet it's in. I got so many books. Too many books in this place. I have a full library. Oh, it might be.
We have snakes.
Oh, wait a minute. Got it. Snakes is a good one.
Do you want me to grab it?
Nope. Got it. This book here. This book's great. You want to talk about getting color ideas and how things look. This book has amazing reference images. Really super high res. You can really see all the different details. Amazing reference book to get ideas from. Like, look at that. You see all the different just grit and stuff and just bumps and not all smooth. Really cool book. I gotta do some more paintings out of that. Alright, so good there. Good there. Start getting ready to unmask this thing and get the shading. Before I do that, yeah, Scott, it's just an amazing book, just for ideas. I'm gonna do a little just freehand here, just a little bit. I'm gonna make that really bright. All right. I think I'm going to risk the unmask and just freehand the rest from here. As messy as this looks right now, you'll see how it's going to start coming together on this metal channel. I hope. If not, then, you know, the feed will just end. And I'll go cry. I'm just going to make sure I get a good separation. Make sure I don't need to do anything on the masking side. Actually, I want to brighten these kind of fangs up first at the very tips. So no bugs. But see, learning bugs is cool when you want to do like aliens and shit. Let me get this blue kind of haze going on here. It looks really colorful right now, but as I pull the mask, you'll start noticing how dark it gets. And we darken things even more as we go. And the real magic of this one comes in when it's cleared. That's kind of the problem with trying to do this one on camera, is it looks so bright. You know, it looks like there's so much going on, and this one, you know, the image looks so dark. But watch as I start unmasking this, because it's really dark in a lot of these areas, and it's got a lot going on. So let's get unmasking and see what we look like. Whenever I unmask it like this, I always start from inside and work my way out. And now we'll start seeing. See how that leg just leaps off there? How the back leaps off? I probably should have moved them down a little bit. There's a lot of black going on underneath here. Whoops. Good thing that was there. Pull all the masking. And you really start to see it kind of leap off. I forgot the one important thing about this, so I'll have to go back in. This center, I kept it really solid black, and the goal was to put the spider over so it covers that. So I'm going to have to mess with that. And go from there. But see how it just pops off there? Because you need all that white to make that happen. And again, when you clear this, in person, this really is not as bright as it looks on camera. But even this one, so you can see all that detail. When you clear it, all this will pop through and kind of have that same look. But this is where you can start kind of toning it down. Bring in some highlights where you need it. And the most important thing is the drop shadow. So I shadow under it and just do a little bit of shadowing under where the legs go. And again, most of this effect comes when you clear it. Because it's really hard to appreciate the tone of this one unless it's cleared. But now I can see where I like everything. I'm stuck between the actual spider and something from Starship Troopers. Oh yeah, those guys are great. So then I put final highlights. Along the legs. And just really just hit all those little pieces. For those following this lesson along, I definitely recommend going between this one and the original Black Widow one. The original Black Widow was filmed and edited, so the pacing's a little bit easier to learn from. But everything in that video correlates over to this one. It's just more about the order of things. But see, these little highlights is where it really all just comes together. And I'm going to go around the hourglass and just hit a highlight edge. And maybe some lines just to give it a little something something. Yeah, something to that effect. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of light gleam on the edges. Hit the edge of the claws, or the legs. We did one where we did, this has some in it, this has actually some mirror chrome in it, but we did one that had a ton of chrome, and then did the webs, and it looked great. Because you can come in and you can highlight some of these webs, like this. Almost give it that water droplet feel. It'll start to look even cooler. Thank you, Michelle. Get in here. I like the way this is looking. We're going to just hit these some more. Just bring out some more of this web. We'll bring some more into here. That'll help this area. Just starts really making that web pop. And then what we'll do is I'll drop shadow the web as well. But see, yeah, the web just starts really coming to life with this. This is one of those paintings you could spend hours on, little details and extra webs and things like that, and I might do that with this one. There's like so much time, money, materials on this one that I have to check what they cost these panels. Yeah, I gotta look at the cost of these panels and see if $250 might not. I have to decide whether I'm going to let it go for that. Probably will. But yeah, it's just coming out really, really cool. But definitely go on, download the Spiderweb project, mess with it. And, you know, as a custom painter, t-shirts, you're going to have someone want a Black Widow something at some point. So you get 3 perfect Widow files to work from. And there's 2 different web files with some other little bonuses, and I think I included little flies in the first one. If you want to put a fly in like the web, you could do that as well. These little things, little extra droplets, are really making this much cooler looking. Especially when you zoom out that, it just looks like it's popping. Now we'll drop shadow some of the web here. You don't have to hit them all, just a little bit is enough to really
Oh, Gary moved it up to 300.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, we'll keep throwing some extras in there and when this is cleared, it's just gonna really pop. I can show you a little bit of what it could look like. All right, let's see what this looks like roughly cleared. Be very careful with this one because I don't want this so much fine detail. We're going to use a little wax and grease remover. And now you'll kind of see that pop, what that's going to look like. Bitchin', huh? Just pops right off the surface. This is just KC10. Don't use KC20 on Createx. But this is my favorite wax and grease remover. It's very mild. You can use it over solvent very easily. You can use it over water base very easy. Without messing anything up. And that is going to be ready for clear. And when you shine a light on it, it just pops. pretty damn cool. It's gonna look awesome. And we're kind of getting wrapped up early. I think that's fine. Any questions, comments, suggestions? What do you use to do the final wipe with that? So that final wipe, that's KC10. So that's kind of the final wipe, and I'll probably do that one more time right before I clear it. I'm going to go back in and do a little bit more artwork on it. And we'll sign this puppy up. Actually, this will be kind of cool too. I can do some little, like, water droplet highlights. Just make it look cool. So yeah, I'll add some more to it. I got to finish up some more work on Honey's piece from last week as well. And I'll get these all cleared up. I got so many panels that have to go out to you guys. I appreciate your patience. They're all sitting sanded. I just got to buff them. I have to do a mass buff and polish and ship out in the next week and a half. They'll all be coming. I might have to take a break from another feed 1 week and just get caught up and get everyone their panels. And that is all she wrote, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for popping in this Friday evening. Everyone who stuck with the whole feed. It was a long one. Definitely go on and download this project and mess with it. Have some fun with it. You learn a lot from it. It's very simple, but you definitely learn a lot from doing it. Whether you do the original Black Widow one or this one. It basically, I have 3 files up online on the store on McKayFineArt.com, and the links are all in the description here, and the link to the original Black Widow videos are also in this description. So you can get the first Black Widow one, which is 20, this new one, which is 20, which comes with 2 Black Widows. The first one comes with all the webbing and everything else. And then, so it's 20 and 20, but if you haven't bought either one, you buy the collection together. You can get the collection together for 35. And that's it. We're going to wrap it up here. And thank you for popping in, checking it out. And I will see you all next week. And we'll get some new ideas. We're into October next week. So you know what that means. Halloween time. This kind of gets us in the mood. But I got some cool things. I'm thinking a Scarecrow project. I'm going to finally bring that up for one of my classes. Or some pumpkin stuff. Or I got some vampire. I got some stuff planned. So we'll make that happen. So everyone have an awesome weekend. I want to give a shout out and happy birthday to my nephew Connor, Ian, Rogan, Lachlan. All your birthdays are coming up right now. We're going to be seeing you all tomorrow. So happy birthday to you all. And I will see everyone else next week. Same time, same channel. Well, different time because this is Friday. But next Thursday will be the key. So have a good one, guys.